Hi, I'm here with Gary Young today to talk about his business, the Mindful Enterprise. Gary, could you tell me a bit about the Mindful Enterprise, how you chose that name, and what mindfulness means to you in business and for the more general population?
Sure. So the the Mindful Enterprise was born out of a transition that I made coming out of a 23-year career in the corporate world and into the well-being industry, where I had started probably from about 2011 to start really doing more sort of dedicated self-development stuff. I'd started to explore meditation. I'd started to explore different kinds of breathing modalities. I'd started to explore yoga and various other kind of holistic therapies, I guess you would say, and maybe walking a bit more of a kind of spiritual path, if you want to call it that, where I was starting to learn a bit more about myself. And I really began to realize that the work I was doing was not really giving me a real sense of purpose and meaning. And I really felt that that I really resonated with mindfulness when I trained in it, and I felt that it was going to be a practice that was going to be not only really helpful for me but helpful for the wider society. And I decided to take the leap and move into what I'm doing now. And I went on my teacher training pathway in mindfulness and really wanted to commit myself to that practice more, so that I could, that I could make it more accessible to people from all ages and backgrounds. And that's what really fueled the journey into to creating the Mindful Enterprise. And the name, I guess, it comes from the word mindfulness, and the enterprise aspect of it was that the initial idea was that creating a model that would see us provide mindfulness based services to different sectors, and with a view to trying to make it more accessible at a more affordable rate for people who maybe otherwise wouldn't have the ability to pay for it. So the model was that we would provide services to businesses, and organisations. So we don't just work with businesses. We work with a range of different organisations, some of which might not call themselves a business, and we also provide services for individual consumers, people who are just interested to train in it or interested to come to retreats because they understand the benefits that they get from these deeper, more immersive experiences. And we wanted to use the profits from that work to create services that could support children in schools between the ages of 7 and upwards, and also those in disadvantaged communities. So we could use our profits to go into those different areas. And those are the areas that really where my passion was, because I felt that people within disadvantaged communities, have got enough stresses and struggles, and if we can try and give them access to tools and ongoing support that can really help them to improve their lives, that was something I was very drawn to. And obviously schools, because I'm a father, and I could see some of the challenges that young people were having in this fast-paced modern world that we now live in, without the understanding of mind and body that they really need in order to be able to survive and thrive in a hectic world. So that was the passion of how the model came together.
So some of your profits will go to helping school kids or school age kids and disadvantaged kids, and it's available to individuals as well as businesses. So I want to focus on businesses in the first instance here. Do you believe, Gary, that mindfulness and courses on mindfulness are a good thing for businesses to bring in, from the point of view of being seen as a caring employer who actually values its workforce, but also as a means to enhance job satisfaction, business culture, productivity, that type of thing?
Absolutely. I think the first and foremost, business leaders have to see this as something that is not only beneficial for the individual, but also beneficial for, as you highlight, business culture. and how it can help culture to evolve. Because mindfulness, people who you maybe speak to that are, that have been involved in mindfulness for a while, will talk about the ripple effect that comes from mindfulness in terms of when an individual starts to develop their own personal practice, how that can then ripple out into their immediate surroundings, whether they're at home or whether they're at work. And that means that the way that we handle ourselves in different kinds of interactions and in a business environment, the way that we present ourselves in meetings and the way we conduct ourselves in discussions that can sometimes be a little bit more, where there's a more emotion there, how we handle ourselves in those moments, mindfulness really does play into, helps us to be more emotionally balanced and have control over how we respond in every moment, because we are more present and aware of what's moving through us in terms of thoughts and feelings, and we're able to develop this skill of having a little bit more space around all of that, so we can choose a really skillful way to respond. And then it also obviously plays into health and well-being with regards to being able to manage our stress levels so that we can self-regulate, become more aware of our little tendencies of the mind that can sometimes lead to us getting more stressed or anxious, and we can deploy the techniques that we learn to be able to stay in a healthy state of balance. So it's a practice that has many benefits. The deeper that people go with it, it can become more profound in terms of some of the life changes that people can see.
And this being present, there's a lot of people with so much going on, and you've got your phones, and you're getting pinged left, right, and centre from all sorts of things, and information is flying everywhere. Being present or not being present is probably affecting a lot of relationships. Relationships with your children, relationships with your partner, relationships at your work, the relationship that a manager might have with his employees. This ability to be present. Could you explain a bit more about what being present is?
Being present is something that we have the innate capacity to do within us, but because of the way that we've lived our lives, the way we've been educated, the Western culture, I guess, it doesn't really lend itself to putting a lot of focus on the importance of being present. We're taught to think, and to think endlessly about all sorts of different subjects, which means that we're very caught up in our heads a lot. And what that means is, with the way that the mind becomes conditioned, we'll find that we're rarely present for any great length of time at all before we notice that we're distracted by something that the mind is presenting to us. So mindfulness very much is about, first of all, increasing our awareness, because when we become present more often, our awareness naturally grows and expands. And it gives us this ability to intentionally bring the mind into the present moment, where we notice that maybe we've started to drift off into some other kind of thought activity that may not be necessary or helpful at that time. It's good for us to be able to use the mind in creative ways and imaginative ways, and to plan ahead and do all the things that are really valuable. But when we've done that, can we just return to being present, and return to being present with whatever's here in front of us, here and now, rather than staying distracted in our minds, fairly regularly? Because what it leads to when we're getting pinged from our phones and distracted by all these other different sources of distraction that we have in our lives now, it creates fragmentation in our attention. And what that means is that we can rarely kind of sort of hold our presence in either conversations or on tasks for any great length of time at all before the mind wants to start to pull us into other things.
And that's where it can increase productivity, isn't it? Because instead of being all over the place, you can focus more. There's a clarity of purpose there, and that's what I think some of these businesses could get. But it's available to individuals too. It's available to kids in schools and other organisations. And I suppose the best way to find out about that is to visit the website, to connect with yourself, to pick up the phone, to fill in a form. You've got taster workshops that you do. Is that exclusively for business? And you've got retreats as well. Can you explain how those work?
Yeah, so we run taster events which are free to the general population, for anybody that wants to just come and get an introduction to mindfulness to see if it might be for them or not. And we do these on an intermittent basis. You know, we'd maybe do sort of 4 to 6 of those a year. And we also, we do a different kind of taster for our business audience, where we tailor that specifically to the business environment. And we offer that as an introductory service, if you like, so that businesses that maybe want to just dip their toe into the water with mindfulness and see how their employees take to it, they can bring us in to do a taster, and they'll pay for that. But it's a really good way to introduce mindfulness as a concept to an organization in a way that means that they're not investing huge sums of money in it before they really understand what it's about. But it gives a good grounding to what's involved, and includes some experiential practice as well. And that is key, because mindfulness is a practice, and in order to get the benefits from it, we need to do some practice, and we need to try to be as consistent as we can with the practice. And the more consistent we are, that's when we start to see the benefits. So businesses can start off small like that, and then they can scale up a bit. You know, if they like it, they can get us in to do some other stuff, because we move from the topic of mindfulness into resilience and stress management and various other sort of well-being related topics, mental health awareness. You know, we cover a lot of different domains within that world that can give people a really good insight into ways in which they can manage their health and well-being, so that they can get much more out of life.
Well, listen, I think it's a great thing for business. Could give them the competitive edge. You know, it really could reduce friction in the workplace. Great for everybody involved. Today was just a short insight to get a feel for it, to whet the appetite for people, and then hopefully they connect with you to find out more about it, and they start that journey. And from there, who knows where it will lead. But you've got all these different options to allow people to dip their toe in the water and find out more. And let's hope that people connect with you, Gary, and find out more about the Mindful Enterprise, because it's an excellent business.
Just before I go, the one thing that is particularly important right now, I think, for humanity, for society, is that if we can learn how to be present more often and be able to manage the mind more, really connect with ourselves on a deeper level, which allows us to develop things such as self-compassion, empathy, these other things that can develop that are really, really core components of mindfulness and what it's trying to do. It's trying to help us to return to that kind of way of being. And it allows us then not only to support ourselves in the best way possible, but also to really add considerable value to those around us too. So I see this more of while it's something that is very personal thing to each individual, I want people to be aware of just how much that this can impact the wider world if we all maybe go down a path where we become more mindful, more present, and more heart-centered in what we do.
Very good. It's a very interesting sentiment, Gary. So thank you again for today. It's been very interesting, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Steve.